Welcome to another FPL video. Today we're going to be talking about the best defenders. We've already got the best midfielders and forwards out on this channel, and after this it is the goalkeepers. Then we're looking to move on to the best budget options, but let's just get straight into it. And if you enjoy this video, be sure to smash the like button and let's try to get to 200 likes. We're going to start off with a few honourable mentions, and we begin with Aaron Cresswell. He had a decent season, but it wasn't as good as the campaign before that. 2 goals and 4 assists, some decent stats such as the expected assists, 5 big chances created. His delivery is quality and he's on set pieces, and I would actually recommend going for him over Sufa, who is 4.5 million, but I don't really trust West Ham's defence. Game week 1 against Manchester City is pretty poor, and if you look at a few other numbers, which is very important, like the FPL points he scored last season, 115, which was nowhere near as good as the 153 he got in 2020 to 21. He also got 7 clean sheets, but 17 bonus points, and I think that's what the main appeal behind Cresswell is, the assists and the bonus points. In terms of clean sheets though, nothing spectacular, and he can get a few goals from set pieces from time to time, or even from open play, but really you're just kind of relying on him getting those assists for the likes of Soucek and all these other good headers of the ball. But let's wait and see with Cresswell. I think he's decent, he's someone to keep in mind, and he is my favourite West Ham defensive asset, but I'm just not too sure if I would recommend him, and that's why he doesn't really make the cut in terms of the best defenders we're going to be discussing later. The reason why Ruben Dias is an honourable mention per se is because there are other defenders to choose from in that Manchester City backline, but he got 2 goals and 5 assists last season. He also got 141 FPL points, as well as 142 the season before that. Talk about consistency, and I can see him setting a new personal best. He's got some good underlying stats as well. 4 big chances and 4 big chances created for a centre-back is very impressive. So Dias is a great option. We could consider him, especially if you can't afford Cancello, but you want a way into that Manchester City defence. But you've also got Edison, a few other defenders we're going to be talking about later. But still, keep Dias in mind. He's not a bad choice, and if push comes to shove, he's not the worst kind of defender to kind of cover these top teams. Coming in at 11.7% ownership, Virgil van Dijk is a great choice. He got 183 FPL points last season, 3 goals and 3 assists, 3 big chances, an XG of 3.51. There's a lot to like, but you've also got Robertson, Trent, Alisson, and also potentially another centre-back that offers better value for money. So Virgil van Dijk is going to be the most nailed in that Liverpool defence, and he could get a few goals, perhaps the most out of all of those defenders. But is he going to get the most points? Probably not, and he's 6.5 million. I'd actually rather go for Laporte, Ruben Dias, or maybe a few other choices around that price than Virgil van Dijk. But still, do not forget him, do not discard him, try to be open-minded, but to start the season with all these options at our disposal, I think we could do better. And look, he's obviously one of the best centre-backs in the world, but is he the best FPL option? Not for me, especially in that Liverpool defence. Sven Botman is one of the best budget defenders this year, 4.5 million, his ownership is just under 4%, 3 goals and 1 assist in Ligue 1 last season with 8 clean sheets in just 25 matches, all pretty good stuff considering Leo had a huge drop-off from their title-winning campaign. Some decent fixtures in the opening 5, but Man City and Liverpool definitely put a lot of people off these Newcastle assets, and I don't blame you at all, but he actually rotates very well with Arsenal and Brighton defenders. So if you have maybe 2 or 3 budget defenders, then you could get away with it and start the season with a Newcastle defender. It doesn't have to be Botman, but he's probably my favourite at 4.5 million, and I would highly recommend him. Lewis Dunk isn't being talked about enough in my opinion. I would rather cover Brighton's defence with Dunk than with Sanchez in goal. Only 4.5 million is a great price. His ownership is less than 2%. He only scored 1 goal in the last Premier League campaign and got 92 FPL points. But in the last 5 Premier League seasons, he has scored 12 goals, and he generally is a very good goal-scoring defender. He's the highest in the last 3 or 4 Premier League seasons. Some bad fixtures to start the season: Man United away, Newcastle home, and West Ham away. Brighton might struggle a lot and fail to keep a clean sheet in those 3 matches, but then Leeds at home and Fulham away is much more promising, and Brighton have actually sometimes kind of disrupted the established order and beaten some of the top teams, including United last season, and you never know, it could happen again. And Dunk, in my opinion, is one of the best 4.5 million options. You can always rotate him with others around the same price, and you can also afford to have him in your bench sometimes. I think that's completely fine, and I think he's a great FPL option. With Ben White suffering from a few injury problems during pre-season and Saliba coming back from loan, Tomiyasu now looks like the best 4.5 million Arsenal defender. His ownership is 16.9%, so he is the highest owned player that we've discussed so far. only 1 assist, no goals, and even at Bologna, he didn't have a great attacking record. The same goes for Japan. 9 clean sheets in the minutes he had is pretty decent, 75 FPL points. And when Arsenal had their full strength back line, they were doing pretty decent. It's not like they were keeping clean sheets every single game, but they were generally very solid. Didn't concede too many goals, but things obviously went south with injuries to Tomiyasu. That's the main problem with him. Same with Kieran Tierney on the left-hand side. I don't think Tomiyasu is an absolute steal at 4.5 million. I think it's a fair price, but it's also a nice way into a top 6 club's defence. And Tomiyasu could actually be very popular, even more so than he is right now, and probably entering the 20% mark in terms of ownership. Very good fixtures, probably the best of any club we've discussed so far. So Tomiyasu is a good option, perhaps even great, but I want to see a bit more attacking potential, just like we've seen with Lewis Dunk, for example, before I can really say, you know what, we really have to get Tomiyasu at that price point. Next up we have Sinchenko, who is about to sign for Arsenal. He has never scored 70 FPL points or more, but with more minutes he's probably going to play in left central midfield or to cover for Kieran Tierney as the left back. I think Sinchenko could do very well. He got 4 assists last season in only 15 Premier League matches, 5 clean sheets and 59 FPL points. No goals, but I could see him maybe getting 1 or 2 at Arsenal. Some great fixtures to start the season, although Crystal Palace and Leicester could be quite tough. But I have to say Sinchenko at 5 million could suddenly become the go-to Arsenal defender over the likes of Tomiyasu. A lot of us could make that switch if we find a way to get that extra 0.5 million. Let me know what you think of Sinchenko in terms of per 90 in some metrics such as key passes and progressive passes into the final third. He was actually surpassing every single defender in the league in some of these metrics, including Trent Alexander-Arnold, but he had a very limited sample size. With more minutes, he'd probably fall down the pecking order slightly, but he could be a pretty decent offensive left back and left central midfielder for Arsenal. We are talking about some proper differentials in this video. Christensen has recently signed for Leeds, and I think he could be going under the radar. I don't trust Leeds too much defensively, but apart from Meslier, I think Christensen might be my favourite Leeds defensive asset, and with the signings they've been making, maybe they're actually going to be a better defensive team under Jesse Marsch and do a good job. 7 goals and 4 assists for Christensen as a defender for Red Bull Salzburg. His ownership is 0.5%. He got 13 clean sheets, and he's got 20 goals and assists in the league throughout his whole career, which is highly impressive stuff. In all competitions throughout his career as well, he's got 23 goals and 44 assists, although some of them do include kind of under 21s, but this is only in 224 matches, so Christensen could be one of the best offensive defenders at 5 million. What do you think about him? I have to say the fixtures are great, apart from Chelsea at home in Gameweek 3, but there's still a few tough ones as well. Brighton away could be tough, and it could be quite evenly matched, but it could also mean a clean sheet there for Christensen. I have to say, he's very impressive, and he could actually break the mould and become a great differential this season. Wolves had a tale of two halves. In the first half of the last season, they were pretty good actually, and punching above their weight, but in the second half, they were dreadful, and not just offensively, offensively, in all areas of the pitch. But Cody still remains for me one of the best options at 5 million. If he was 4.5 million, I think he would be in my team. You've also got Johnny, who isn't going to be featuring in this video. And I think if you can, find extra 0.5 million, Cody is worth it, just because Johnny might not be as nailed. And he could be rotating with Aït-Nouri and also Nelson Semedo on both flanks. 4 goals for Cody, the second highest scoring defender last season behind Gabriel. No assists, but 11 clean sheets and 138 FPL points. So Cody and Jose Sarr were 2 very good FPL options last season for Wolves, despite, I'd say, their decline in the second half. Some good fixtures like Leeds away and Fulham at home, as well as Bournemouth away in the opening 5, but Newcastle at home and Tottenham away are pretty difficult. But Wolves actually had this period where they had a lot of bad fixtures, but they did very well in that period. And then once the fixtures kind of eased up and they had a great, a sea of green basically in terms of fixtures, they actually struggled. So it's worth noting that football isn't always played on paper, but Cody has some good fixtures. He's shown what he could do last season, and he never really used to score goals, but he has changed that in the last campaign, and I could see more from Cody this season. Luca Digne is going to be the more differential of the 2 Aston Villa fullbacks, but Cash, his ownership is quite justified. 7 goal contributions in the last campaign. His legendary performance in Double Game Week 28 with 29 points. 147 points overall. 13 clean sheets. Some great fixtures, especially the first 3 to start the season. It does get a bit more tricky after that, but I still like Matty Cash. And if you're looking for a defender at 5 million, maybe look no further. I have to say though, Luca Dean ended the season stronger than Matty Cash, but over the course of the season, Cash was the clear winner. What are your thoughts on Matty Cash? Are you going with him? He's a very popular option, but at the same time, at 0.5 million more, you can go for Perisic. At 1 million, you can go for a Chelsea fullback, or maybe Laporte, Diaz, Matic, and then you've also got all the other premiums like Robertson and Trent AlexanderArnold. But I have to say, Cash, at that price point, around 5 million, is probably one of the best medium price defenders. Same price as Cash and also similar ownership, Kieran Trippier could be the go-to Newcastle option throughout the whole team. 2 goals last season, but he didn't play that many games. No assists, only 1 clean sheet, 28 FPL points. Both of the goals were from free kicks, and his set-piece delivery is exceptional. And if he can stay fully fit, I think Trippier could be a fantastic option at that price point. And I trust Newcastle to actually get more than 10 clean sheets this season and to be right up there, potentially competing for a top 8 spot. So let me know your thoughts on Trippier as well, and be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new if you enjoy these videos. But would you go for Trippier or Botman? If you're asking me, if you have the extra 0.5 million, it has to be Trippier with that extra attacking potential. It's very close though between those two. You've also got Nick Pope in goal, who we'll talk about in an upcoming video. So many options for Newcastle all of a sudden, and it's good to see. We talked about Perisic not too long ago. His ownership has actually decreased quite a lot, but it's still 40.1%. I think it was around 55% when we did our first official draft. 8 goals and 7 assists in Serie A last season in around 32 appearances with 14 clean sheets and 14 big chances created. These are great numbers, and I think it's a great signing for Spurs, to be honest. Chelsea away is pretty difficult, but I could still see Perisic getting something, whether it's a clean sheet, an attack and return, and I just think he's going to be a good signing for them. Some great fixtures to start the season, and in the first 6 overall, Spurs are right up there in the fixture ticker. Other than Kane and Son, Perisic is probably the 3rd best Spurs asset now, overtaking the likes of Kulusevski, who was really good last season as well. So Perisic has to be under consideration, and despite the ownership not being ideal, I still think he's a great pick. With very similar stats to Van Dijk, but costing 0.5 million less, I think Matic might be a better option, but he's also going to be more at risk of being benched for Konate. So that's something we have to bear in mind. But I think Klopp might do what he did last season and play Konate in the Cups and Matip in the league. If that's the case, then I would go for Matip over Virgil van Dijk. Otherwise, I'd maybe swap them in this list, unfortunately. But 3 goals and 3 assists, 170 FPL points last season, only 16 fewer than Robertson, 17 clean sheets for the Cameroonian international. Really good stuff for him. Some great fixtures. Even Man United away, Liverpool could do a good job there. And I just really like the fixtures, the form. And I think Liverpool will do a good job, despite maybe a few problems in pre-season with the injuries and also some disappointing results. But that's just one thing. And I still would expect Matip and Liverpool to offer great value. Laporte had an almost identical campaign to Joel Matip in terms of FPL. He got 160 FPL points, 10 fewer than Matip. His ownership is 5.2%, which is really, really tempting. 4 goals and 2 assists, fantastic stuff. And he actually had more big chances than Matip and Van Dijk combined, although those two actually created big chances. Laporte didn't. Some great fixtures, despite West Ham away and Newcastle away potentially being quite tricky there for City. I have to say though, I would expect City to still get quite a lot of clean sheets in the opening period, and I could see great things for Laporte once again. There might be a few concerns about whether he'll remain the starting centre-back for City. He was sometimes quite suspect and, costing them in big games, but Laporte generally has been pretty good and he offers great FPL value. Even now at 6 million, I think he'd still be worth it. But then you've got Cancello at 7 million, and it's just worth going for that extra 1 million for the Portuguese fullback. Chilwell did a great job last season when he was actually playing. He got that big injury that took him out for most of the season, and he could be eased back into the team, but it could take some time. That is the big problem. 11.2% ownership is really good. His 6 million price tag is also fantastic, the same as his fellow fullback Reece James. 3 goals, 1 assist in 7 appearances with 4 clean sheets. That's 8 returns in 7 games, and that's why, in terms of FPL points per 90, he was the best of any defender with 9 FPL points per 90. That is incredible. 10 shots inside the box as well in 7 games is ridiculous. And if Ben Chilwell could retain that level that he showed last season, then I think we've got a great FPL asset on our hands, perhaps even better than Reece James. And I like the fixtures despite the fact that Chelsea tend to struggle against Everton away, and I think Tottenham will actually be much tougher than they have been in recent seasons against Chelsea. Then some great fixtures like Leeds away and Southampton away. Leicester at home is pretty mixed bag defensively, but I could see some attack and returns for the Chelsea fullback. So all in all, Chilwell is a great option, but we might have to be a bit patient with him. James had a great season in terms of goals and assists, 14 in total with 5 goals and 9 assists. That is crazy. His ownership is quite high, but just because he's a template pick, it doesn't make him a bad one. And with Chilwell, we might have to be patient and he won't start games from the get-go. But with Reece James, we'll probably get that certainty. Despite his injury problems last season, 9 big chances created, 141 FPL points, all really good stuff. I think James will get more assists and Chilwell will get more goals, assuming they play a similar amount of minutes. But both of them offer great value, some good fixtures. I think Chelsea are good defensively, but they might suffer a bit of a decline compared to previous seasons with all the departures at the back. Despite some signings like Koulibaly, Sterling that could really help Chelsea overall, I still would have a few doubts about the defence. I wouldn't want to triple up on them. I've seen some people go for Mendy in goal, Reece James and Ben Chilwell. I think that's a bit too much, but obviously if you back Chelsea that much, then it makes sense. I'd probably go for 1, if not 2, and Chilwell and James is my favourite Chelsea defensive double up. We're now on to the big three. No, we're not on about tennis. We're on about football in FPL. These defenders, Joao Cancello here at 7 million, 1 goal and 11 assists, only 7 points fewer than Trent, the second highest scoring defender last season, 19 clean sheets. And Joao Cancello also has some incredible stats such as his XG, which is almost 6. And I think if he can get his finishing in tune, then he could actually be the highest scoring FPL defender. He's the only one apart from Robertson that I could see outscoring Trent this season. And he's got some great fixtures like we discussed before with Laporte. And I would highly recommend Cancello. His ownership is quite high, but I'm seeing a lot of people going without Cancello, and I would try to get him in. If possible, I think it's worth inclusion, and I can see him breaking 200 FPL points once again and setting a new personal best, which by his standards would be a great success. Andrew Robertson was actually one of the best FPL players for me last season on my Gameweek 26 wildcard. He got 186 FPL points overall. The kind of first half, or maybe the first 10 games, was very disappointing. He wasn't playing that well, but he really kicked things up, and from Gameweek 13 onwards, as I mentioned multiple times in these videos, he outscored Trent AlexanderArnold by a landslide, and he was the best FPL defender. 3 goals and 11 assists. His ownership is 10.2%, which is probably the stat that really stands out, even though we shouldn't look too much into ownership, it has to be said. 17 clean sheets, great fixtures. Robertson has a lot of quality, but he's also a bit more likely to be displaced by Tsimikas than Trent is with the other right backs that Liverpool have, such as Ramsey, their new signing, as well as Joe Gomez. But let me know your thoughts on Robertson. Are you going with the Scotsman? He is very, very much going under the radar, but it's very difficult to fit him, Cancello and Trent into one team because you'd also want Reece James or Chilwell, a good goalkeeper, and a very solid midfield and attack. So it's easier said than done, but Robertson is a great FPL option. If you're covering the best FPL defenders in a video, you can't go without mentioning Trent AlexanderArnold. I think Robertson and Cancello could outscore him this season. It could finally be that campaign, but he's still the go-to defender, as you can see with his ridiculously high ownership. 2 goals and 12 assists, 18 clean sheets, and in terms of FPL points, as we discussed before, he was the highest scoring defender with 208, and he also got the second most bonus points of any player. Only Kevin De Bruyne got more with 33 compared to Trent's 32. And as we discussed with Robertson, I like the fixtures for Liverpool, despite United away maybe posing a bit of a challenge, especially from a defensive point of view. But look, Trent is Trent, and I can understand why so many of us have him. And despite his quality, I think you could maybe downgrade Trent to Robertson because that extra 0.5 million can go a long way in improving another area of your team. So for example, if you're not a big fan of Tony and you want Wilson, you can use that 0.5 million to make that upgrade. So it really depends on your team, but I think most of us are going to end up going for Trent in Game Week 1. Let me know your thoughts. Who is your favourite premium defender? And also at each price point, mid-price, the budget defenders, etc. that we've covered today. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new around here. Thank you very much for all your support. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM. You can also become a Patreon or a channel member. The links are in the description below. The same goes for the FPL League. And you can also join the Discord server. It'll all be much appreciated. All the best of luck for the upcoming Premier League season. Enjoy the summer break, and I'll see you next time.